Welcome to another edition of AV Rant. I'm Tom Andrea, Associate Editor of Audioholics, and I am here with, that is the second week in a row I've flubbed that.
Very
Second week.
good. Well, you are here with Rob H. This is AV Rant. This is a question and answer show about home theater and audio video. We take your questions, we answer them. It's a lot of fun.
It is. You see, I think that was a little bit more, a little nicer than some of the other things we've done. It was just
I completely forgot to even prepare anything, so I will once
that.
again
You know
just
what? Winging it. That's what we
quite
do
literally
most around here.
describe the show as it is.
We are a question and answer show. We help people with our home theater. That's what we do. I mean, it really is true, and we're gonna hear more about it this week. How we literally helped put somebody's mind at ease. I don't know if we'll get all we into those questions.
That is true. That is his words. So
Not ours.
fair enough.
So we're like the Gandhi of AV, really, is what we are. I mean,
Meh.
if I was gonna compare us to somebody,
Oh man.
maybe too far. I don't know.
But
So I just want to say
maybe just Dalai Lama. That's just the Dalai Lama of home
See,
theater.
I just always picture a llama. I know. I should know who that. I know kind of who it is and what the whole thing is, but in my mind, it's just a llama. All right. So, those of you wondering why the podcast took so long to post, I hurt my back, which is not really that big of a deal. But like Friday morning, I edited the podcast. It was all ready to go. All I had to do was do the show notes. So I started the show notes, and but then I had to go to work. And when I went to work, I actually went to work at my boss's new house that he bought so that he can move his business out of his house and into someplace else.
Okay.
So he's doing all sorts of stuff over there. I thought I was going over there to paint. I ended up going there to dig big holes to put trees in, which is not that big of a deal, but I kind of tweaked my back a little bit climbing, and then the digging of the holes, and then I came home and did yard work after that because we were having a 4th of July party the next day.
Right.
And it all sort of it just spiraled into the next day I could barely get up.
Yeah.
So
Happy 4th of July, by the way.
yeah, thank you. That was pretty good. So then the next day, despite the fact that the only thing that made my back feel good was either lying down or standing up, sitting down was awful.
Okay.
So I forced myself to sit and do the show notes, and I got them all done. In fact, I emailed you. Remember, I emailed you
Yes.
and said, please do the show notes. I said, don't worry, I got it. I'll do it.
Yes, you did.
it, and then I pressed save draft, and it deleted everything, and I rage quit. I just full on rage quit. I did everything but throw my computer across the room, which is exactly what I wanted to do. I was in so much pain. And I was like, I just did this for it takes like a half an hour to do the show notes. It really does.
Well, see, when you emailed me yesterday to ask if at first if I could do the show notes, I was like, oh shoot, was I supposed to do it? But then I looked at your previous email from Friday and you were saying then that you would do them. So I was like, no, I don't think I forgot it. So
No, it wasn't you. It was me. I just got super irritated.
Confusion all around.
Yes. I'm sorry. So I'm sorry the podcast was late this week. Don't worry. This one will probably also be late. Yay.
Well, there you go. Just a week behind. There's your incentive to go to the YouTube page instead.
That's right. So
there.
we do record these podcasts weekly at around the same time. So it used to be Tuesdays at 9 p.m. and it's now Mondays at 9 p.m. Eastern time. If you would like to know, like I don't send out there's a on G Plus. If you friend me or circle me or whatever, I'll circle. I don't know who you are. I'll circle you back into my listeners one, and you'll get an announcement that this is coming about 5 seconds before it comes. I'm not doing it 3 hours, 3 days, or 3 hours beforehand because every week it's the same time.
Well, I
9
put up
p.m. Eastern.
I put up a post every week on Facebook. I would say an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours at the most before we're going to start. So if you do check our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/AVRantPodcast, all one word, then you'll see my post there. I also do tweet at the same time on my Twitter account. My Twitter is @FirstReflect.
We're going to go through all the contact information in a second. I just want to get this out there that
I
we
thought we were
record this
rolling
at
into it.
9
See, I was
p.m. No,
segueing.
We're not segueing. 9 p.m. Eastern time on Mondays, and then afterwards, I think 2-hour podcast, and then about 11 p.m. we do the after party. So if you can't make the podcast because you're on the other side of the world or something, or whatever, and you want to come to the after party, all you got to do is you become one of those listeners in my listener thing. I send an announcement out inviting all of you to come to hang out, and we've had a full room before, which is 10. We've had a full room before. I don't know. We may have had people trying to get in and couldn't. I don't know. But usually it's about 4 or 5 people, 6 people, depending on the week. And we just talk. Sometimes we talk about stuff that is completely irrelevant to AV. But a lot of times it's like, hey, there's this new device, let's talk about it. Or there's this new thing, let's talk about it. Last
or a
week,
new movie or TV show, that type of
all
stuff too.
sorts of stuff. So,
Yeah.
anyways, this is AV Rant, the podcast where we answer your AV and home theater questions and any chicken-related questions too. I'm still down with that, though I haven't gotten it yet. You can get your question answered just by asking. You can email Rob at avrant.com, Tom at avrant.com. Not Rob H, not Tom A, just Rob
Just
at avrant.
3 letters, the minimum possible.
That's right. I could have just went for Rob, but I think he would have been irritated with me. He did already mention at Twitter at first reflect. I'm at avrant_Tom. Come to the website www.avrant.com. You can comment there. We'll see it. Facebook.com/avrant podcast. Again, that is all one word. And G plus, I am plus Tom Andrew, all one word. And just that's how you're going to find me. We do have a YouTube channel, which is you can find it. It's not that hard.
If you just search AV space rant, like put a space in between AV and rant, then like everything will just show up, and you can click on the channel page, which is Mr. Nomus, which no one will remember, but if you find any AV rant video, and then just that's the name of the poster, which is Tom's.
They're all in the same playlist.
They're all there.
You click the playlist, and then they'll all be there, except for the one that you guys did with the 4 people one, because I never added it to it because I didn't get the link. You need to send me that link. Let's do it after the podcast.
I sent you the link twice, but okay.
Hey, listen to me, sir. I went on vacation during that time. When I came back from vacation, I had 1,537 emails.
You got the show notes, and the link was in the same email as the show notes. So
deleted it after
that.
Shut up.
All right. Well, over in my neck of the woods, my city is on fire. That's not like it is. There is a fire. There are fires. There are fires going all over the.
Is it like Devil's Night?
Not quite. No, there's fires going all over the wooded areas, and then we had a fire yesterday up on Burnaby Mountain, which is sort of a local small mountain. Okay. So yeah, the local fire is out. That's good. But the sky is gray, and it has blotted out the sun, which is kind of nice because it's given us a little bit of shade in this horrible heat wave we've been having.
Silver lining we were looking for.
That is the silver. It's still hot though. It's still hot.
Wow.
We have blotted out the sun with smoke.
There is the silver lining.
And it's provided shade. Yeah.
Been saying something. I think this is saying something, but I don't think I would have gone there with the blotting out the sun. But all right. We do have a listener of the week this week. This is Rohan. Send us a donation. Thank you, Rohan.
Thank you.
You can get to be listener of the week by doing any number of things. You can go to www.avrant.com and leave us a PayPal donation on our Buy Us a Cup of Coffee link. You can also just support us in some way and be creative. If you have a race car, stick a sticker on it. If you have a race motorcycle, stick a sticker on it. If you have a race helmet, stick a sticker. I don't know.
Okay.
Sticker-related things are always appreciated.
Yes.
Telling people about us, and most importantly, telling people that you bought stuff because of us, specifically the people you bought it from, is always a way to become listener of the week. This week, we had Rohan, who sent us a donation. So thank you, Rohan.
Awesome. Thank you.
And Rohan's a cool name, too. I would like to be named Rohan. Change my name. All right, in the news, from Efren, HBO will be re-releasing the first 4 seasons of Game of Thrones in Steelbook Blu-ray packages. Is actually in a steel box? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's very thin stamped steel for the case instead of the regular blue plastic. But that's how you will know that it is this version and not the previous version.
And these new versions will all have Dolby Atmos, where you can hear the nakedness above you.
There you go.
There you go.
It will in one fell swoop be more Atmos discs than all the movies that have been released thus far.
So if you've got speakers over your head, you have to buy this.
It's
better than having to buy like one of those dancing movies, right? Which I think was what you had to buy.
There was one. There was Step Up All In. That was in Atmos. I have it.
I know you do. I'm not even asking you what you own anymore. I'm just gonna assume you own all the crap.
If it's got Atmos, I probably have it.
All right. It doesn't even have. I guess you do have it. You don't even. Shut up.
I do.
Skilled Air Core's new I bubble wrap, and yes, they put that lowercase I in the name. Takes up 1/50th of the space before. Why are we talking about this?
Because it's bubble wrap, and bubble wrap is very important because this new bubble wrap does not pop the way bubble wrap should.
Why? How? I'm just saying, it doesn't seem like you're trying hard enough. if you can't pop bubble wrap. It feels
Well,
like
you shouldn't have to use I mean, the whole point of bubble wrap is you snap it with your fingers. Yes, they're new bubble wrap. The whole reason they're doing this is I mean, the reason this sort of fits in with our show, aside from the fact that I just like bubble wrap, and who doesn't like popping bubble wrap, and what is the point of bubble wrap if you cannot pop it? But no, places like Amazon and anywhere else that is shipping large amounts of products, they are looking for something better than traditional bubble wrap, which came pre-inflated. So think about that. You're filling the whole truck, bringing the packing material to the warehouses already pre-inflated, which is wasting a tremendous amount of space. Yeah. So this does make sense.
Should have been invented a long time ago.
Yeah, 1/50th the amount of space. However, you need a special pump like at the warehouse to inflate it, and it costs like $5,000 or something. So obviously, it's only meant for people who ship.
They've got 5. They're shipping themselves 5 in the old bubble wrap, just to be ironic about it. All right. There's a nice summary of all the officially announced North American Dolby Atmos DTS-X HDMI 2.0 with HDCP 2.2 AV receivers over at HD Guru, which I read through.
Yeah, it's handy. It's if you want to know. However, there are still a bunch of models, particularly from Denon and Marantz, which we know are forthcoming because they were announced in Europe, but they haven't been officially announced in North America yet. So HD Guru hasn't included them in this particular list, but I'm sure they'll update it as soon as.
I was actually kind of surprised that Onkyo's offering some pretty craptacular.
Well, they must have more models coming too.
Yeah. Well, that was the thing. It was like there was like a lot of pretty expensive stuff to get. Like DTS-X, you had to be like almost a $900 price point, like $850 or something like that for DTS-X.
Well, I think they had their cheaper TX-NR 646 and 747. I think those are the cheapest ones.
But that has Atmos, but not DTS-X, or it had something in.
No, they got both. Pioneer doesn't have DTS-X in anything, and Yamaha doesn't get DTS-X until their top 3 models.
That's the one I was thinking of.
It was Yamaha?
Yeah.
Because Yamaha has one model that has Dolby Atmos, but not DTS-X. Just so we can confuse everybody. Like, I'm seriously just going to be telling people just get a Denon or Marantz, because all of the Denon and Marantzes, unless they're a 5.1 channel model, the ones that are 5.1 channel, obviously they can't do Atmos or DTS-X because they have nothing beyond 5 speakers. But everything that has 7 channels or more in the Denon and Marantz lineups, they have it all. They have Atmos, they have DTS-X, they have HDMI 2.0A on all the ports, not just a handful, with HDCP 2.2 on all the ports. So it's like, Denon and Marantz made it easy for you. Everybody else, you got to be careful what you're buying.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens when they all come out, but I'm leaning that same direction, which is unfortunate. I was really kind of looking forward to having something else to say other than Denon and Marantz. Because, frankly, I have no brand loyalty. I'm perfectly happy recommending whomever is the best at that time. It just so happens that in the last couple of years, Denon has been kind of knocking it out of the park. Though I feel like this, well, Onkyo is also doing the whole thing. Is it Onkyo that's doing the 386?
Onkyo are the ones doing the 384 kilohertz 32-bit DACs, because they
can't buy.
They seem to be going whole hog after the crowd of people who believes in stuff that makes no audible difference, because they're like, those guys don't want room corrections, so we'll just nix Odyssey, and they want ridiculous DACs that do absolutely nothing for soundtracks that don't exist, so we'll give it to them, and we'll make it so that our automatic EQ doesn't affect your front, left, and right speakers and always sets them to large, because that's what those people want. It's like,
I don't know what Onkyo's going to be able to do. Now, it makes sense from their Integra brand to be like this.
I guess.
And maybe that's what it is. Maybe they're just like, okay, Onkyo.
I mean, wouldn't, if you're a custom installer who actually knows what you're doing, it isn't just placating crazy people, then don't you want something available? Oh, get a Marantz. There you go.
There you go. I don't really know. All right, so interesting offerings that are coming out right now, and we always kind of knew Pioneer was spiraling down the tube, anyways, from the buyout and stuff that happened last.
Yeah, they might be getting phased out entirely. Who knows?
It really kind of feels that way, but we'll have to give them another year to see.
Yeah.
But for right now, it looks like, from what we can see, it's Marantz and Denon all the way.
Yep.
Does that mean that you can't buy something else and get a good deal? Yeah, you can.
No, I mean, those upper tier Yamahas, they look pretty good too.
Yeah.
So,
well, I'm interested to see, because I couldn't really tell from that article where it sounded like everything was Odyssey multi-Q. Maybe, I mean, I didn't really feel like it was we were seeing the higher end stuff.
In Denon and Marantz?
Yeah.
All of the X series models are
XT.
At least XT, the three upper tier models: the 4200, 6200, and 7200, which you won't see in this HD Guru list yet. But those are all multi-EQ XT32.
Yeah, you see, those weren't shown yet. So all I was seeing was
Right.
XT, and I was like,
Yeah, XT and the 1200 and the 2200, and then in the S series models, it's just regular mult EQ, which is actually kind of the only difference. Like everything else feature-wise looks the same. Maybe there's differences in the power supplies and amps. I'm not sure, but the ratings on the amps are the same, so they look very much like sister models.
Turn around because the X series has probably got a lot of legacy. And maybe 7.1 analog or something like that.
Or extra zones or something.
Yeah,
like
zones.
Kind of what they do a lot of time. Yeah.
All right, Gary. We bumped you last week. Sorry, dude. We had to because we're now up to H. Did he add more?
Some of them are pretty short. Yeah, there were two more that came in this week. So I tacked them on because what's the point of splitting up?
Let's not split Gary.
That's right.
So Infinite Gary's got some questions about, I'm sure.
Lots of stuff.
All different things. Let's start off with first. He wanted to let everyone know that the Reeves audio. I always called it Reeves. It might be Rivs, but I think it's
Rives. I don't know.
Rives. Yeah. RIVES audio has closed their operations. Their website has been taken offline. Chris Hudson, who worked there and who helped design Gary's room, now has his own company. It's the Hudson Design Group, which is.
Is it Houston? I thought it was Houston.
Houston. Oh yeah, Houston.
I think it's Houston.
Yeah, whatever.
Might be Huston.
Designgroup.com. You can look that up there. Rives, or whatever they are, they had one of their early test sticks is what we used to always use.
Yeah, the Test Tone CD.
Yeah, and I still have it. I mean, it's burned lossless to my computer, so it's never going away. But I still use that. You know, whenever I do a review, I'm like, okay, these are the test tones. Well, which ones can I hear? You know,
well, they always gave it away free, so I don't know if I threw that in a OneDrive and gave out a public link, it probably wouldn't be the end of the world. So maybe I'll do that.
Yeah. B. Gary is wondering if the new UHD displays with HDR and wide color gamut will have something akin to a vivid mode for stores. Yes. Is it possible they could actually look even more hideous than the way HD TVs look on store shelves? Yes. These are all possible, and I don't know how they'll actually look. The ones I've seen have looked pretty good. They look absolutely identical to the HD TVs sitting right next to them.
Well, how many have you seen that have high dynamic range, though? Because at this point, that's pretty much Samsung's two upper tier lines of S UHD TVs. Like, that's about it for official high dynamic range support at this moment.
I might have seen one of those, to be honest with you. I'll have to check. I might have, because I've walked by quite a few really expensive Samsungs lately and gone, wow, that's pricey, and not that big, you know, and that's when you kind of know. So I'll take a look. S series, is that what you said it was?
Yeah, SUHD. There's a J in the name somewhere. I forget offhand, but I mean, the reason Gary is asking this is because one of the features of high dynamic range, at least in the two major competing standards right now, which are the SMPTE 2084 standard and Dolby Vision, both of them include metadata in the source, which is supposed to allow your television to say, hey, I understand what that metadata means, and that metadata tells me, the TV, how bright this image should be and what the curve from black rising into this brightest white that I can produce. That metadata is supposed to tell the TV how that's supposed to look. So Gary's like, well, if that's all in place, then we shouldn't have some kind of crazy overblown mode that makes the TV just as bright as it can possibly be, to be like the noonday sun in the middle of the store, because that's what the metadata is supposed to do. However, it would not shock me whatsoever to still have a vivid mode that makes it brighter than you would actually want it in your home. So.
Okay, and even, Gary, if there's not that mode, I guarantee you there's some combination of buttons you can press that will put it into display mode. And a lot of times they have these display modes which will, I mean, it'll even have like stuff in the storage of memory in there that will cycle through a number of different little images and test patterns and stuff that look like test patterns, at least, to show people as they're walking through the store. And I'm sure that one will be bright enough to get a sunburn next to.
Well, I am also sure that almost all high dynamic range and particularly wide color gamut capable TVs coming up in the future, I am almost positive all of them will have at least one picture mode that will take HD TV content, 1080p content, and attempt to expand it to
Oh,
make
yeah.
use of the wide color mode and the
Oh, for
brighter
sure.
highlights. I'm sure they'll have at least one mode that tries to do
That
that.
will be fantastic.
Because, I mean,
That will look
HD
great.
TVs today already have that, right? There are lots of HD TVs that can actually produce wider
Doesn't his
colors than
projector
the
do it?
HDTV
Doesn't he have
standards.
that projector
Yeah,
with the
that's right.
special
Yeah,
extra thing? He's
yeah.
got it.
They'll
So
call that like the native color mode
they'll
of
make
the
it sound
projector
good.
or the TV,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
they're like, you can have more colors than what's in the signal. Why wouldn't you want that? Well, because they're not in the signal, so now it's totally inaccurate. But yeah, yeah.
C or 3, depending on if you go numbers or letters. There was a ton of discussion and space devoted to high resolution audio at the CE Week show in New York 2 weeks ago. Gary included a link to a huge collection of videos from the show. I
Yes,
didn't
he
even
did.
click it.
It is a large collection of videos. I did
What?
not watch them.
I didn't either. But what's our take on the general tone and apparent focus on better than CD quality audio? I think we have really kind of beat this one into the ground, Gary, to be honest with you. Uh, you know, the idea of having better than CD quality is great when you're mixing and when you're doing all the processing to it. But really, from a standpoint of how well you hear, CD quality is not just good enough. It is as good as it needs to be in order for you to hear everything that you're able to hear.
Right.
So
Yes.
by making it better than that, it's like saying that there's stuff in here that only your dog will hear. Well, I'm not paying extra for my dog to hear stuff. I'm not. First of all, I don't have a dog. Start where. Number two, it would not pay extra for that anyways. I'm paying for what I want. It's like I'm not just going to buy. We're going to sell you this meal, but we're only going to give you a third of it. The rest of it it exists. Take our word for it. But you can't taste it, feel it, see it, smell it, or touch it.
Yup. Yeah.
Why am I paying extra for it then? Would be the logical question.
I actually think this has it has nothing to do with audibility.
No.
That's the marketing side of it. But what makes sense to me is we know, for one, that CD sales are continuing to fall and have already plummeted. I mean, CD sales are way, way down from certainly their peak, which was years ago now. So we're just not going to convince the public at large, and we're not going to convince audiophiles that what they should be buying right now are CDs, even if the CD sounds as good as the sound can possibly sound, and when it's mastered properly, it can. But even that being the case, people just aren't going to buy CDs. So then the alternative, of course, for the vast majority of people are downloads, but almost all downloads, from regular mass marketplaces or streaming, is data compressed. So,
Yes.
I mean, yes, it is lossy. Information has been lost from anything that is an AAC or MP3 file. Now, if it's 320 kilobit AAC or MP3, I defy almost anyone to actually be able to pick that out in a blind comparison. But nonetheless, factually, some information has been lost. So what they're basically saying is, if you want essentially CD quality, lossless audio quality, but we know nobody's going to buy CDs, then we need a new format, something that we can market as being sexier and better to get anybody interested in it at all, because even the audiophiles who do care about the audio quality are not going to buy CDs. So we have to sell them, market something that we call better than CD, otherwise they're not even going to look at it.
Frankly, are we going to now have a new CD format? I mean, because basically we're right back to them downloading higher res files.
Yeah, it's downloading FLAC files
which makes no sense, because why don't you just give us the lossless ones?
Just
have
give
the
us
option
the CD file,
the
right?
CD file.
Well,
Right.
in a lot of cases it is. A lot of cases the FLAC was a CD, and then they up-resed it to 9624 just so they could sell it as high resolution audio, right?
It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. And then they'll sell you, because at places like that they'll have the lossy version for the MP3 for the riffraff, right? And then they'll have like the CD quality version,
right?
For the people who apparently got stumbled upon the site, had no idea what they were going to. And then they have these high-end quality high quality versions that are supposed to be so much better, that are really just up converted versions of the CD quality one that they sell you for double the price.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
No! Don't stop it!
If you've listened to this podcast and now you know, then you can treat yourself to the CD quality version that costs half as much and sounds every bit as good and is genuinely lossless. It is lossless.
The same.
I'd even go for the 320 kilobit. because it
There you
sounds
go.
the same. Yeah.
You won't, but you could.
Uh,
4D. Gary also shared a link to an editorial from Soundstage Hi-Fi titled "Why I Don't Infer a Speaker's Sound from Its Measurements." It's a pretty good read, actually, that describes how measurements are still useful, but that the main problem is that we rarely take a look. And I'm sorry, take and look at enough measurements. Take
right.
enough measurements and look at enough measurements.
Yeah.
And by measurements, we're not talking about from different speakers at the same speaker. There's
Yeah.
actually some measurements that you can make there really. Now, if you've ever read my reviews, you'll see that what I'm comparing is not this speaker's measurements to another speaker's measurements. I almost never do that. What I often will do is I will say within this measurement, you can see how this part of the frequency range is accentuated or is
Hmm.
not quite as strong, and that explains why I heard this.
Yeah.
Um,
Or
frankly,
how, like, from on axis to 15
yes,
degrees off axis to 30 degrees off axis, how the frequency response changes, because that
yes,
does tell you something about the dispersion of the speaker when
and
you see that sort of thing.
that's what we do with measurement. Like, Gene and some other people do a lot more, but that's what I guess, do with measurements.
Hmm.
I look at in like intra-speaker measurements. I'm looking to see how
Hmm.
well designed the speaker is, and that's kind of what this guy is talking about in
Yeah.
this. Is that's what he does.
Yeah.
He's looking at if the speaker is poorly designed, then you're going to see weird things in the measurements, but you're not going to take that measurement and go, "Ha! Now that I've seen this measurement, I know that this speaker will sound just like this," because
Yeah,
you don't.
or comparing these measurements from this speaker A to the same type of measurement from speaker B, and just from looking at the graphs going, well, speaker A is clearly the better speaker because of such and such in these particular
Yeah.
measurements. You can't do that because it is not enough data.
Yeah.
That is
Well,
true.
not only that, too. I mean, depending on where the measurements were made, I mean,
Hmm.
it's just there's so many things that could go in to make the measurement a little bit different. If
Oh yeah.
it's in room, well, then it's completely hosed. It's fine if you're looking at the speaker itself. It's fine. And then I always say I did it in this room, and there's this how much treatments they were in there, and this is what I did around it. Like a lot of times, I'll put like uh, acoustical panels around the sides of the speakers.
Hmm.
Sort of make like a trough between the speaker and the microphone of acoustic panels, just to try to keep those reflections from being too much. I mean, I don't always do that, but I have done that in the past, and I'll say so.
But that is definitely not an anechoic chamber. So,
No, not by
you know,
any stretch of the imagination, and that's what you kind of need, and that's why
yeah.
you have to be very careful with
Yeah,
measurements.
no, I mean the point is
It's
really
a good
well.
article.
Yeah, the point
It's
is well
actually
made in this
really well written.
editorial. Yeah, how, like, sound is coming out of more than just the front of the speaker. Like, even if it's just a traditional monopole frontward firing speaker, there is still some sound coming out the back, going to the sides, going up top, going down straight down to the floor. Like, and we don't typically, certainly not in like magazine reviews or online reviews, you don't see like 70 measurements taken from every angle around the speaker with the speaker inside an anechoic chamber. Now, speaker designers, speaker manufacturers, they will sometimes do exactly that. They will take like a multitude, hundreds of measurements of the speaker, but you don't very often see that in a review. And even still, even if you had all that data, imagine trying just with your eyes and some graphs to put that all together in your head and come up with, well, this is how the speaker sounds then. Like, no, we pretty much still need to listen to it at some point,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I agree. I agree with what is said in the editorial.
Okay. 5E or E5 or whatever we're going with. Gary also wanted us to explain whether so-so speakers in an acoustically designed room would sound better than very good speakers in a so-so room.
Yeah.
Mostly interested in our reasoning and how we actually think this question through. All right. It's really kind of impossible to say, honestly, because how so-so is the speaker and how so-so is the room.
Right.
And not only that, how so-so is the room in comparison to what the speaker actually does. So is the speaker a bright speaker and you have a so-so room in that it is cavernous and it has a lot of absorptive material around?
Oh, okay.
Well,
Or it's
then,
all made of glass.
yeah, right. So is it okay? So there you are. So you got this cavernous room, right, where sound gets lost in it really easily. That bright speakers might, even though it's a so-so speaker, might actually sound pretty decent in there. Now you take a speaker that's maybe just a touch bright, right, and you put it in a glass box. it's gonna sound absolutely horrible. It's gonna be shrill, right? Absolutely shrill. So, it really depends on the interaction between the room and the speaker.
Hmm.
Um, without describing the room and the speaker, I can't really say one way or the other. Technically, I want the better speaker in the so-so room than I want a so-so speaker in a great room. A so-so
Okay.
speaker in the great room, for me, there's only so much you can do with that. Like you
Yep.
can't make the speaker any better, and the room's already great, so you're kind of stuck. A very good speaker in a so-so room, there's still stuff you can do. There's a lot of
Yeah.
stuff you can do.
Yeah, I mean, it goes back a little bit, sort of tangentially to when we were talking during the four-man podcast when Tom was away about, what separates a good speaker from a very good from a great speaker. And, I was sort of saying there, like, well, a very good speaker, or at least a good speaker, produces all the sounds that you can hear. It doesn't fail to produce some frequencies, which, there are plenty of speakers out there that they don't produce the really high frequencies, or the frequency response is just plain uneven, and there's
Yeah.
not really anything you're going to be able to do to correct that. So if that's the definition of so speaker, then that's as good as it possibly ever be. And no matter how good your is, there's your limiting factor. And that's really what I look at is what is the limiting factor? Because at some point there's going to be a transition between what is limiting the quality of my sound is now my room, not my speaker, right? So if your speaker is inherently flawed and can't produce all the frequencies we can hear, then it doesn't matter what you do to your room. That's your limiting factor. But once you get a at least good, decent speaker that can play all the sounds relatively accurately, then it could be your room now that is limiting the ultimate sound quality, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's still the speaker because it's only a good speaker, not a great speaker yet. So yeah, that's what I look at is where's the tipping point, right?
Yeah, and if you think about it this way, do you want your room to be your EQ?
Right?
So say you have a so-so speaker in a room that you can do anything you want with. You're like, oh well, the mid bass on the speaker is not so great. So what if I did this and this would probably we'll take away some of this absorption here because the length of the room this way will give a bass boost in this region and stuff like that. You're like, do you really want to do that, or would you rather do it
Just
the other
get
way?
a linear speaker to begin with, yeah.
To begin with,
Which is probably cheaper and easier anyway.
Yeah, no doubt. So, yeah, there's no right answer to that one, Gary. I lost track. We're on F.
F.
Gary played a 2008 release DTS DVD Yazoo upstairs at Eric's. Could be porn. I don't know what he's talking about. Anyways, and he saw DTS 5.1 96/24 come up on his Anthem processor's front panel. He's never seen this listening mode show up before. What is it? I actually have a couple of these discs. This is when DTS was doing high-end audio DVDs. They were sort of experimenting with a number of different playback formats. And the problem was that you couldn't get 96/24 on anything more than, I think, 2 channels. And this 96/24 DTS, a specific decoding mode, allowed you to get that full 96/24 on all 5.1 or all 5 channels.
Which, as we've just been saying, you really don't need 96/24 like ever. But
again, the reason that why these discs are good is not because of the 96/24. It's because if you're going to do 96/24, someone's going to pay attention to the mastering. And that's what generally ends up happening. That being said, I've got some absolute garbage ones.
Yeah.
Like I've just got some where like you can tell like the song that band was known for, they paid a lot of attention to it. The rest of it, crap. Absolute. Yep. It like the comparison in the mix between those songs that and the songs you don't. It's painfully obvious that they're like we're gonna pay extra for this dude to mix these 2 songs, and then just whoever's around can do the rest of it. And that's basically what they did. So,
like all of DTS's formats, they still start with a DTS core, your standard DTS 5.1 core. So if you took a DTS 5.1 96/24 file and played it back through a receiver that only has a regular DTS decoder, you'll still get 5.1 sound. You'll still get regular 5.1 DTS. But DTS has always done this core plus extensions model with all of their sound formats.
Again.
Yeah, so there's an extension, there's additional data on top of the DTS 5.1 standard core that expands it to 96 kilohertz 24-bit sampling. As far as I know, though, it's still lossy. As far as I know, this is not a lossless format. It is a higher sampling rate and a greater bit depth, but still data compressed. So, yeah.
My Blue Man group, I have a Blue Man group, the Complex, that I think has this on it, and it sounds really good.
Yeah, because
Lossy
we
or not.
didn't get to lossy until we got DTS HD Master Audio and Dolby True HD. Those were the first lossless formats that we had. So this is still data compressed. Weird.
All right. G, which I think is question 15 or so. What does smooth actually mean when reviewers use that term to describe a speaker's sound? What sort of measurement would indicate smoothness? First of all, there is no measurement that would indicate smoothness. Start with that. Number two, it's probably like the finish on the cabinet. That's what I'm going with.
Oh, I've definitely heard them describe the
I
sound
have
as
too,
smooth,
and it
yes.
doesn't mean anything. It's just some word they use.
It's a very subjective term.
There is no dictionary that we use. Audio reviewers do not get a handbook when you start like, oh, here you go. This is what you use. If you say smooth, you have to mean this. No.
Yeah, glossary,
It just doesn't work that way. You have to read around the word to figure out what this person's talking about. What's smooth? The bass? Okay, well, that's something. Is the top end smooth? That's something else. Is the mid-range smooth? That's something else. Are the transients smooth? Whatever that could possibly mean. But I guarantee you some a-hole out there has said that before. I guarantee it. I want to go search it right now. But I'm not going to do it.
Well, to me, I sort of look at, well, what is the opposite of a smooth sounding speaker? The opposite to me of a smooth sounding speaker would be an edgy or a jagged sounding speaker, because sometimes you see those words too. The sound is edgy. And that most often means that the edgy sounding speaker has some distortion in the high frequencies, or maybe it's just bright in general, like the high frequencies are emphasized, which would then sort of mean that the opposite of that would be, well, the high frequencies are either a little bit rolled off or they're de-emphasized in some way, and that would lead to a smooth sound because it's not like grating or, sort of stabbing at your ears in any way.
Yeah,
but
I don't
I
know,
mean, it's
dude,
so
because
subjective.
I don't think this is something that I would say about an entire speaker.
Well, myself,
I would say it about parts of a speaker. So if you said that the top end was smooth, I would actually take that as a negative. That means that it's rolled off.
Could be.
That it's some way. Now the mid range is smooth. Well, then maybe that transition from the tweeter to the mid range to the woofer is kind of seamless. You're not hearing.
That's what I was going to say. Like I've had the thought myself of, because there are some speakers where, particularly if you get quite close to them, but there are some speakers where you can very noticeably tell when the sound transitioned from being in the tweeter to being in the mid-range to being in the woofers.
Right.
And it doesn't sound entirely coherent, whereas other speakers, that transition from between those different drivers is very seamless. You can't tell where one ends and the next begins. And to me, that's smooth.
That would be a positive. Like the top
Yeah.
end, if you said the top end was smooth, I might think it's negative. But you're trying to be nice about it because you want to keep your job. And if you said that the entire speaker was, or the mid-range was smooth, I would think that might be a positive. You said the bottom end was smooth. I don't know what I would think. It would depend. It would depend on how low you said it went. It was smoothly go down to 20 hertz. Well, then that's pretty good. If it smoothly goes down to 45, less impressed. So it just depends. It just depends. I would generally say that
It's
probably be a more positive indicator than
I think it's one of those ones that you put in there when you have no objective things to say. Because it's such a nebulous subjective term to use about a speaker's sound. It tells you really nothing objective anyway. So
yeah, speaker manufacturers love it when you do the stuff like this.
Yeah.
When you talk about
exactly,
you talk about the sound of their speakers like it's a person, the sound is so unintrusive. It's not encumbered. It doesn't come at you. It doesn't force itself. It just washes upon. What
yes.
the hell are you talking about?
Well, my favorite is when they say this is a musical sounding speaker. That is my absolute favorite description.
It's a tuba. It sounds like a tuba. I'm having a hard time not cursing today. This is going to be an interesting podcast. Did we already say that? Okay. Now, lastly, question 26. Lastly, Gary's calibrator came back and got everything fixed up for his projector. The calibrator asked if Gary had had a power outage since his previous visit. There was a power outage, but Gary has a backup generator. That said, it takes a few seconds for that generator to kick in, so power is temporarily lost for those few seconds. Could a power outage really have affected the settings? I'm having a really super duper hard time believing that.
It really should not have affected any of the user settings. The one thing it could do is if the projector was like you were watching it, it was powered up and you were watching it and the power cut out, that could affect your lamp.
Yeah, but I don't see
But
how
it's
he would know
LEDs
that.
in his.
Yeah, I don't know how he would know that, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, stranger things have happened than, say, like on your video game console. You're in the middle of the game, the power goes out, and you lose your file save, right?
Yeah.
So, could the little static memory chip inside possibly have been shorted out by some kind of power outage or power surge? I suppose it's possible, but I think what's far more likely is that Gary was playing with the settings. And the calibrator
And that guy
came
was
back.
giving you an out.
The calibrator came back and said, "Hey, these settings aren't where I left them."
Did you have a power outage and or play with the remote for an extended period of time and then email two random dudes in the podcast about what you were doing and it was too late to do anything about it?
Yeah, I
Not judging.
I think that's the far more likely thing that changed the settings.
Yeah. All right, Gary. We'll see you next week. Don wanted us to comment on a Kickstarter project called Here Active Listening. It's H-E-R-E, not H-E-A-R, because everybody's so clever. That aims to use an app and 2 wireless earbuds that would allow you to adjust what you hear in real time. It includes EQ, volume, noise cancellation, etc.
Mm-hmm. Did you watch the little video?
I did not watch the video, but I read the website. I wasn't
Okay.
watching the video. I had family stuff going on at the time, so I had to.
At least it's a short video. It was like 2 minutes and 30 seconds. But
That's 2 more minutes than I was willing to give it. These things are tiny, super duper tiny. They have gotten $635,000 of their $250,000 goal, so they have made it.
yes, well exceeded.
Well exceeded, that's right. And the idea here is that you have your iPhone with some app, and then there are sort of settings like turning down the volume on what's going on around you. There's a live music equalizer that allows you to, whatever you're listening to, you could give it reverb because you are a terrible, terrible person.
Or you could,
and you think that's a good idea.
Quiet or quiet down or enhance the bass or the treble or the mid range, whatever you want to do. There's a in the video they show it. The guy just puts his finger on a little graphic display and moves his finger up and down to adjust the EQ wherever he wants it.
Yeah.
There's
reverb. There's vinyl sound, whatever that sounds like. It looks like a big hole in the center. Is what it
Adds
looks like.
some hiss.
Echo. There's a noise mask, and then there's preset filter. So I really don't know what Hendrix means. I don't know what that means.
I guess it's the same distortion filter he put on his guitar amps.
I suppose. I don't know why you wouldn't run around. Everybody sounds like that. Just terrible.
It's one of those things you'll use once and then never use.
But they also have preset modes. So like if you are on a airplane, you can click the jet engine one, and it's sort of preset to noise filter out that jet engine. I feel like if you just had noise canceling headphones, this would work a lot better than trying to find the right preset for the right engine. But they also have, because they hit some of their stretch goals. They have advanced advanced tools, and they have a way of saving your settings. So if you have something that works really well on the train, or maybe you figure out the exact frequency that your wife speaks at, you can save it.
Many other people do too, so good luck with that one. So as far as I could tell, I didn't look close enough, but I think they're planning to sell these for about $250 for the pair of little things plus the app. Now at that price, because these things, both earbuds, because they're wireless, so they're connecting, I'm assuming, via Bluetooth to your phone.
Yeah, Bluetooth, automatic Bluetooth pairing says it right there.
But they are sort of self-contained in that they each have a little microphone in them. They each have a little earphone in them, of course, and then a little DSP chip, plus a battery's got to go in there somewhere because they're wireless. Yep. Now you stuff all of that for $250, and I'm like, I'll believe it when I see it, because if you're going to put all of those components in, they're not going to be the highest end microphone and earphones and little DSP chip.
They don't have to be.
They don't have to be, but I mean, they're planning on doing all of this in real time, like EQing sound in real time, no delay.
30 milliseconds is what the delay is between the time the sound comes in and the time it comes out.
Yeah.
Which is probably long enough for my wife to say, "Why haven't you answered me yet?" So
Because it's not supposed to be your phone. Like, it's not supposed to be your phone's microphone that's picking it up, your phone crunching the stuff and then just sending the audio to these buds. It's all supposed to be happening inside the buds. You're just using the app to program the buds,
right.
and then you should be able to put your phone away. So, yeah, I'm a little dubious on this, I gotta tell you. Yeah. And they better seal darn well, because they better be highly effective earplugs before they attempt to do any of this other stuff. Right?
Well, I mean, I think the idea is that it lets sound completely through. Is that right? It must.
Well, no, because the sound is
the
coming.
graphic looks like.
The sound is coming in through the microphone, which sits in the outer part of your ear. So it's coming in through the microphone, going through the DSP processing, which you've just programmed using the app, and then being amplified through the little earbuds that are sitting inside your ears, acting as earplugs and in-ear monitors. So that's the idea. In real time, you're adjusting the world around you, which is a nice idea, but I don't think you're going to be able to do it for $250. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, see, the way that they're making this look is that there is a microphone at the, like it just lets sound in, and there's a microphone at the beginning and a microphone at the end.
Okay.
So the very top and the one right before your ear. And then there's a speaker halfway between, and the DSP happens between the first microphone and the speaker.
Okay.
So, but they're showing the sound from outside going straight kind of through. I don't know. I don't know. I don't think it's. I don't know. Hey, I would be kind of for this on general principle. I think $250 is a little pricey, but
well, because I mean, for people who wear hearing aids, they don't cost $250. They're way more expensive than that.
Yeah.
So, good luck.
Yeah,
if they were saying these,
trying to turn the sound down though, that's a lot different than.
That's true. Well, yeah, I guess.
I don't know. So Don, we are wishy-washy on it.
Yeah.
Now, new for this week, Barney. It's been almost a year now since Dolby Atmos became available in the home market. Barney wants to know how we assess the situation. Is that the end of that question? Or should we?
Well, the second.
How do the currently available and recently announced products compare with what we were hoping to see? Well, DTS X obviously was the thing I was hoping for, and hoping for it not to be what it is, which is just Atmos, but from DTS, it's probably more bass. We
don't know yet because none of it has even come out yet.
Yeah, I said probably. Yeah, so I'm severely disappointed, honestly. My assessment of the situation has not changed. This will not be a thing. We are seeing all this stuff come out now because this is how long it takes for it to come out.
Yep.
Now, the question is how long will it?
They rushed to market.
They did rush.
Yeah.
So 3D lasted how long? And 3D I never said was viable, right? So what? 3D was what, 10 years? Is that 10 years that we've had 3D around? Feels like that. No, it's 5 years. 5 years of 3D?
Oh, I think it's been longer than 5 years.
Has it really?
Oh, yeah, it's got to be.
No.
We've had
anyways,
since 2012.
5-10 years of 3D, right? And 3D, I think we can all admit, everybody tried it once and went, and all you had to do was buy the TV and get the glasses that came with the TV. And that's how little you had to do in order for 3D to be something you tried. We're now talking about installing speakers on your ceiling or buying special speakers that bounce off your ceiling, which I just don't see a lot of people doing. Therefore, this is a solely market. We need to be able to say we've got something new in there. And they literally, if someone had announced a grilled cheese sandwich tray, they would have put that in there because they needed to sell some more receivers. They need to give you a reason to upgrade. And this is it. I think Onkyo, to be honest with you, as useless as I think what Onkyo is doing with the higher resolution DACs, at least it is something that people will use whether they know it or not, whether they need it or not, whether they hear it or not. I kind of almost approve of that more than I approve of Atmos. And I hate saying that.
I don't feel that way. The reason I don't feel that way is because I agree. I think the whole putting speakers on your ceiling or upward firing speakers, that's the majority of people aren't going to do it. But object-based audio. Object-based audio is a good thing that is going to be used. The studios like it. The content creators like it. And they are going to use it. We're going to have lots of object-based audio mixes. So to me, it makes sense of having a way of playing object-based mixes in your home. And that's what Dolby Atmos and DTS:X are. So even if most people do, and this isn't even most people because this is already the subset of people who are willing to do 5.1 surround sound. But even if that's as far as everybody goes, you're still getting an object-based mix. You're just hearing it in 5.1, not even 5.1.2. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we have a way of playing object-based audio at home now. That's fine. I really think that's about all it is. I think that's all it really amounts to. It's nice that for this subset of the subset of people like myself who are willing to have 11 speakers, cool, we can have sounds going overhead and behind us and really seamlessly panning all around us. That's great. I was hoping initially, because he's saying compared to a year ago when this was all starting versus what we know the case to be now, what's the comparison? And I'm like, at the time, I was hoping we might see some models that would allow us to use 13 speakers instead of 11 to keep using those front wide speaker positions, which I happen to like. I've tried things out with just going like 9.2.2, so keeping the 9 speakers around, that's including the front wide, and then just having one pair of overhead speakers instead of 2 pairs of overhead speakers. I'm like, that's fine, because the top middles are all you need. Like,
Yeah.
you don't even need 4 speakers above you. 2 speakers above you in the top middle position is all you need. So I'm like, you know what? I don't think I need 13 speakers. I think 11 is perfectly fine. If I want the wides, I can do 9.2.2.
Yeah.
So I'm
I will agree
fine with it.
I think that the object-based is definitely something that we need.
Yeah.
I think we needed the object-based. So I will rescind what I said, that it's completely useless. It's not completely useless. The whole overhead speaker aspect of it is pretty useless for
Yeah.
most people.
But
But
for the few
subset,
who
but the
will do it.
object-based is good, I think, because if
Yeah.
we ever do get to the point where more people are doing the frisbee thing like Yamaha, or we get more 3D ways of figuring out where speakers are, object-based will really come into its own, and suddenly we will see what I wanted to see DTS X do. What I wanted to see, I think that that's still possible, and it can only be possible with object-based. So I'll give it that. All right. What do we make of the current divide between what's available from Dan Marantz, Yamaha, Onkyo, Pioneer, etc.? I think that is all of them. Did you miss one? I think there's no etc.
Well, I don't know. Who knows? Maybe Harman Kardon will come back into the game at some point. Yeah, mass market is what I mean. Consumer level.
And much more expensive offerings like the brands from Trinov, Datasat, Steinway, Lindor, Theta, etc. I'm not familiar with what are any of them. Well, Trinov does. Are they doing? They're doing DTS and all that stuff, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, Trinov has their Altitude
32,
which can do 32 speakers. And Trinov, now this is their own thing. This has nothing to do with it being DTSX or anything else. Trinov's own auto setup system has always been about being able to virtually reposition speakers, as in I wanted my surround left speaker to be directly to my side and slightly above me, but because of placement restrictions, I had to put it further behind me and at ear level. Trinov's whole claim to fame has been that they can virtually make it seem as though that speaker was where you want it to be. And they can apply all that to all the Dolby Atmos and all the DTSX and all the Oro 3D speakers. So, but that's Trinov, and it's a $50,000 processor. So there is a large divide between consumer level and Trinov. And then these other ones are all in like the $20,000 to $30,000 range. And they're doing, usually they start at 16 speakers that you can have connected and all firing at once. So, I mean, there isn't really anything in between. I mentioned there is the Anthem one that's coming up. Anthem's got a processor that's going to be, price-wise in between, because it's probably going to be in the $8,000 to $10,000 range, but it tops out at 11 speakers, just like all the lower end brands do. So you're not really seeing anything in between 11 maximum and 16 minimum, all the way up to 32. But like I said, at first I thought I would want that, but now I'm like, as long as I can have top middles, I'm fine. That satisfies my overhead needs. So done.
Yeah. So basically, that's for people who have, 40, 50 seat theaters, and they're that's what it's basically.
Oh, hey man, if I had all the money in a room that size, I'd get a Trinov Altitude. Why the heck not?
I can think of a lot of reasons, like another car. Barney also watched a YouTube video in which Andrew Jones is explaining Dolby Atmos. At one point, he makes a comment that the ideal for surround sound would be identical full-range speakers in every position without a separate subwoofer. Really? No subwoofer? Why would Andrew Jones say such a thing? That is very conventional wisdom. That has been the conventional wisdom since before Floyd Toole did his research on subwoofer placements and did a lot of research on that. That was the ideal, was full range speakers no subwoofers.
Mm-hmm.
That way, the idea, if you think about it this way, it makes sense if you listen in an anechoic chamber.
Yes.
If you are in an anechoic chamber, then all the sound that is supposed to be coming from a position will be coming from that position.
Mm-hmm.
And anything that's supposed to be panned between two positions will be coming from there. There will be no reflections anywhere. Okay. So if you think about it that way,
Mm-hmm.
it sort of makes sense. It doesn't make any difference where your subwoofers are at that point because you're in an anechoic chamber.
That's right.
So there's no bouncing. There's no room reinforcement. There's none of that. There's just you and no sound reflections, and you wondering why you can hear your heartbeat in your ears. Nothing, but the minute that you take, and that was the conventional wisdom because that's all we knew. And some people, once they get that something in their heads, they don't really need to know anything else. And that's still, a lot of people believe that. So him saying that is probably only shocking to you because you listen to this podcast. I think most of the people who would have heard him say that go, "Oh yeah, that's the way it should be." Yeah,
Right.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
that's the way. That's it. That's what they do.
Unfortunately, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
it's
there
wrong.
is the whole thing of, I mean, the theoretical ideal would be a point source speaker, a mathematical point in space that has no dimensions that just emits sound magically. All sound, all audible sounds are coming from a point source. Okay, yes, that's the theoretical ideal in a room that has zero impact on the audio that you're hearing, which of course does not exist. So, okay, if you want to take it to that ridiculous extreme and say, quote unquote, ideal is a theoretical ideal, then yeah, okay, he's not wrong. That's true. But yeah, I don't really think that's what he meant. I think Tom nailed it. It's the old way I think of it. But I mean, Barney mentioned in his email, which was like, well, regardless of all of that, even if we think that full range speakers all around you were the ideal for the speaker channels, what about the dedicated 0.1 LFE channel? Where does that go? I mean, saying the ideal system has no subwoofer in it whatsoever, where does the 0.1 channel go? Well, it could just be played by all of the speakers simultaneously. That would certainly give you the additional headroom required by the LFE channel, which is an additional 10 dB of headroom above and beyond any individual channel. So I guess maybe that's what he meant, but yeah, I think Tom's
What he meant
exactly
is that he's
right.
been saying that for 30 years.
Yeah.
He's not about to stop right now.
I mean, over at TAD, he had stereo full range speakers. That's what they made. That they cost $80,000 a pair, and that was the only thing.
They were
that
very
they
good
had.
too. I've heard them. They're
Sure.
excellent.
I would still have at least a pair of subwoofers in my room and cross them over. That's what I would do
That's what I would do too.
because I have a room.
Barney also noticed that the positioning of the center speaker in the video, which is quite low and inside a TV stand with the center speaker angled upwards. Barney thinks images like this are harmful to the public at large. He sees installations like this all the time. With his own setup, he found that moving the center speaker out of the TV stand and onto its own proper speaker stand made a large improvement. So why did Pioneer and Andrew Jones decide to demo their speakers this way? There's two possible reasons. One, he designed them to be in such an installation because that's where people who buy his speakers are going to put it. Two, and probably more likely, in my mind, is that he put his speakers in the way that he thinks his customers are putting his speakers, and he doesn't want to put his speakers in a weird way and then have them say, and confuse his potential buying public. That's kind of what I think. I think it's that. I think he put it exactly. I think if you talk to him, he'd say, "Oh yeah, you wouldn't want to stand in the middle of the room or away from the wall." Blah, blah, blah.
Ideally, you'd have it at seated ear height, not below. But
yes,
we have a TV to consider.
And I think he put it in, and that's what they do. They put it in the way. And when I listen to a center channel, if I have a TV stand, I would stick it in the TV stand and tell people I stuck it in the TV stand, and then I would also put it on this, a freestanding thing as well. But that's my center channel could be raised up 2.5 feet, I bet, and still it would be just below ear height. But I don't have a stand that high, basically. Without a stand that high, I am sort of hosed. I should build one. I have a table saw.
That could be done. Yeah, watching this video, they made this room. This was a demonstration room, but they made the room look like something of a normal living room. This is a larger room than I think most people are going to have, to be honest. but they were demonstrating the upward firing speakers, which they you got to have some distance, otherwise you're going to be able to notice that the sound is coming from beside you or in front of you rather than above you if you use those upward firing speakers too close to your ears. So yeah, that's really all it was. They're saying, hey, this could be your living room. This could be the way you set up your 5 speakers, 4 of which have upward firing drivers on top of them. It was a demonstration of the Dolby Atmos enabled upward firing speakers. That's what the demo was there
Yeah,
for
it's not
people
really. It's not really to show you how to best place
Yeah.
your center channel.
So they were trying to give people an image of, oh yeah, this could be in my home, because most people are saying, more speakers? I don't want more speakers. And they're like, look, it doesn't look like more speakers. It looks just like the 5 you already have. Maybe, kind of, sort of. They just have these ones firing up. So, yeah, that's what was going on there, I think.
All right. Sush Schmidt. Thank you for discussing his question last week. He wanted to clear up a few things and ask a few more questions. Hey.
Yep.
Are we up to, is this D with a V after it? Oh my goodness.
Well, there's the extra parts to D, yeah.
Yeah. Anywho, his apartment is on its own.
His is the Escher apartment.
This is the Escher apartment. We were having problems with understanding where things go. His apartment is on its own separate unit. The stairs go directly to a door that leads only to his apartment. There is another door with another set of stairs that leads to an apartment above his. So nothing is shared with his upstairs neighbors except for your roof, right? Is that what I'm?
Well, his ceiling is the other person's floor. Yes.
Okay, that's fine. I didn't click on this. I didn't click on this floor plan. All right, so there.
I still prefer to think that his stairway just leads around into an alternate dimension and comes right back.
I think it goes right back around to the back of the house. I like it. I like that better. I reject your reality.
That's right. I've never been to your house. I've never been to your apartment, so therefore I can create my own.
That's right. All right. Second, he liked the recommendation of the SVS PC 2000 cylinder sub. He likes the form factor. He just wants to know if this PC 2000 performance is identical to the PB 2000 box version. I don't know. It's probably not. I would think that the PB, I don't even know. The PB
there was, I'm trying to remember whether it was a podcast or a review or what the heck. Somebody tried this out anyway in one of the multitude of things that I either read or listen to. And they're like, well, technically it's not identical. In fact, the PC 2000 played 1 hertz lower than the PB 2000. But that was about it. They're like, for all intents and purposes, they sound exactly the same. And that's the whole idea. That's what SVS was aiming for.
You know, it's just, I would expect a similar performance.
Yes.
So I wouldn't worry too much about that. Okay, second, a third, whatever. He found that using Netflix via his Blu-ray player seemed to have been the choke point and the cause of his low-quality audio issues. He tried connecting his phone via USB and got much better sound quality.
Streaming Netflix through his phone. Yep.
There you go. So perhaps a Chromecast would be a good idea. Sure, let's go with that. It's $35, dude. You can't
exactly.
Really
yeah. No, this is not uncommon because there were a lot of Blu-ray players that, honestly, the processors inside them were not terribly powerful. So when you were streaming things, it's kind of like running it on a really low-end PC. And a lot of them were sort of like
the settings
retrofit.
were on his Blu-ray player too.
Yeah,
that could have been.
And it could still just be the internet connection because this wasn't happening simultaneously. It was different times of the day or different days. So
yeah, that's true.
But
I like the Chromecast though.
Yeah,
I'm a fan.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right, now he took our advice and brought his Ascend Acoustic Sierra 2 speakers over to his friend's house to compare them directly to his friend's Magnapan 1.7 speakers driven by Emotiva Electronics. Here is what he deserved. 1. His Sierra 2 speakers didn't sound noticeably different at all when they were being powered by his Yamaha receiver versus the Emotiva DAC and amp. So he's happy that he doesn't feel the need to upgrade his AV receiver, which is what we said. So that's good. Put one in the win column for AV Rant.
And to be fair, the Magnapans might have.
That is
the
true.
Magnapans draw a lot of power.
That's true.
So,
yes.
Yeah.
That's
Your friend's
we
not
said
crazy.
that last week too, or last week, that he probably needed the Emotiva gear for the Megapans, but not vice versa.
Yeah.
2. The Sierra 2s and the Megapans 1.7s definitely sounded different from one another, but for most genres of music, he didn't feel strongly that one set of speakers was better than the other. That's
just
good.
different from each other. Fair.
All right.
Yeah.
Number 3. For certain specific sound effects, such as rain and thunder, he thought the Magnapan sounded more realistic, more immersive, and, quote, larger, unquote. Not smoother. I mean, nothing smooth about it. With their smoothness going on, just say feel the smooth. Anyways, he also felt that this way with orchestral music. So for those specific things, he thought the Megapan sounded better. However, number 4, he tried our suggestion of moving off axis and out of the sweet spot. And when he did so, it seemed like there were certain frequencies missing with the Magnepans 1.7, and he didn't think they sounded good at all. Meanwhile, he could move a good 20 degrees to either side of the sweet spot when he was using the Sierra 2s, and their sound didn't change at all within that window. So, sweet spot issues. We knew that was going to be a case.
And that happens with those very directional speakers because there are, in fact, to your ears, sounds missing because they are being canceled out by themselves.
Yep.
You're getting lobing issues with sound wave interactions that are canceling themselves out once you move out of the sweet spot with those big, flat, huge panels.
Yep. All right. 5. They listened to the Chesky Ultimate demo disc, which I have purchased in the ridiculously high bitrate one because I felt like I had to by peer pressure. Honestly, what it was. And by peer pressure, I mean I think that you people expect me to have the highest quality one, and if I didn't, then somebody would eventually say, "Well, if he was listening to the high quality one, he would have heard my headphones sounding the way they were supposed to sound." Shut up. All right. Anyways, he listened to the Chesky Ultimate demo disc. We'll link that up for you in the show notes. And in all cases, he thought the Sierra 2s delivered better, more detailed high frequencies. I am impressed with that. I am impressed. So in all, he says we have put his mind at ease, and he's no longer worried that he may have made any bad decisions in his purchases. He loves his speakers. He's confident that his Yamaha AV receiver is powering them just fine, and he's looking forward to his new subwoofer.
Yay! Yes, it is entirely still true that those Magnepan speakers, they are different from the CR2s. They can do some things that the CR2s can't, but the CR2s can do some things that the Magnepans can't. So, I mean, that's why I have zero problem with there being lots of speakers out there in the world, because for specific applications or specific rooms or setups or whatever it is, sometimes one speaker is going to be better for that particular set of circumstances than another. So, yeah, he's heard it all firsthand now, so let's put his mind at ease. I'm very happy.
Yeah. Jay, wanted a reminder of what it is we're calculating when we divide the speed of sound by the length of the room. What's the formula again? Is there any easy calculator that could be used? And there is, in fact, because there's a link right here.
Yep, and it's a very cool calculator because what you do is you plug in the length and width and height of your room. It's only going to work for a rectangle. That's, they had to simplify things a little bit here. But assuming your room is a rectangle, plug in those dimensions, and it's actually going to give you a long graph from left to right showing you all the frequencies at which you will have standing waves. And that's what we're calculating. When we take the speed of sound, which is about 1,125 feet per second, and yes, that does change based on altitude and temperature and relative humidity. So we're talking about the SI standard units. So it's a 20-degree room with a single, one air pressure, one earth air pressure, sea level air pressure.
14.7 pounds per square inch.
And dry, not humid. So, okay, all those things, 1,125 feet per second.
Not in Florida in any way, shape, or form.
That's right, yeah. So, that'll change a little bit, depending. But generally that, and then you divide that by any given single dimension of your room, and that will tell you the dominant standing wave frequency. That's what you're going to get from that. The one where exactly one cycle of that sound wave fits perfectly into that dimension of the room, and therefore it will just bounce back and forth between those two opposite walls all day long. It's going to ring for a really long time because it is the perfect resonant frequency, one exact full cycle of that given frequency. That's what we're calculating there. But this calculator gives you a lot more information than that because, of course, it tells you the resonant frequencies in all dimensions of the room, and it shows you all the harmonic frequencies because, of course, there's sometimes exactly 2 cycles or exactly 3 cycles are going to fit into that. And it gives you a cool little 3D map that shows you blue and red zones. Blue zones are going to be nulls. Red zones are going to be double up peaks. And it's really cool to be able to see where in the room there's going to be happening. So at the dominant resonant frequency where exactly one cycle fits, you're going to have a huge peak right in the middle of the room, which is why you don't really want to put your seat there, and you're going to have
How many
nulls at
times
other
we tell you
ends.
not to? Please
Yeah.
don't, because
But
it's not a good place.
but yeah, they show you the axial modes, the tangential modes, and there's even the diagonal modes. So there's some, that show you like the corners and edges of your room. There's like alternating blue and red zones, but you can see it all there in this little online calculator. So it's pretty darn cool. I like it a lot.
All right. And that's basically what, yeah, so that tells you what it is.
Yeah, I will just say the inverse of that, which is you could take the speed of sound and divide it by a given frequency, and that result will be in feet, and that will tell you the wavelength of that frequency. So if you took 1125 and divided by, say, 20 hertz, that'll give you 56.25, which is the wavelength of a 20 hertz signal. So that's the other end of dividing one thing by another.
So Andy over on Facebook was listening to a recent HT Geeks episode with guest Brian Vessa from Sony Pictures, in which they were talking about mastering audio, including Atmos for home release.
Mm-hmm.
Andy was very dismayed to hear that the mastering is done near field with
Genelec.
Genelec. I always have to think about that one because I always think there's a T in there someplace. There's a genetic, but Genelec. Speakers set up in a large room, but placed on stands and trusses close up to the listener, which is a very different setup from pretty much any home. Why would they opt for such a setup? Remember when we were talking about anechoic chambers?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, those cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. They are really ridiculously expensive to build. But you know what's not expensive to build? A big empty open room that is absolutely huge. Okay, now it does take real estate. It does take that. But if you take a bigger room and you put the speakers close to you, you sort of take a lot of those reflections. It takes a long time for reflections to come back to you.
Yeah.
So that near field gives you a more anechoic experience.
Yeah, the reflections are certainly weaker now because they simply had to travel a greater distance before they bounced off something and made it back to your ears. So the ratio of direct sound to reflected sound is now much higher. You have much more direct sound than reflected sound.
So the reason they opt for this is because it's a heck of a lot cheaper than an anechoic chamber, and it gives you that simulation. So they don't want their room to make a difference. Why? Because their room ain't your room. Mm-hmm. And they don't want to mix for a room. They want to mix for all rooms. So what are they doing? Are they trying to make a colored speaker? Like some of these speaker manufacturers who are like, we have a curve that no. They're going for flat. And for them, flat is taking the room as much as they can out of the equation. And that's what they're doing with that. Genelec speakers are a popular choice for mixing. They always have been for years and years.
They're very, very linear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, more than that, I did listen to this episode of the HT Geeks podcast, and, Brian was actually saying, like, the particular room that they use, it is a full-size dubbing stage, so it's the size of a full-size, small commercial movie theater, and they basically do their theater mixes in that room, and they do their home mixes in the same room. But for the home mixes, they just bring all the speakers much, much closer, because your room is definitely not a full-size commercial movie cinema with those types of speakers in it. So they're like, well, we're going to bring the speakers closer, and we're going to play everything at lower playback levels because now the speakers are that much closer, and we're going to master the home release in this setup versus a full-size movie theater. Now, I'm not exactly sure what Andy would prefer, because he was angry that this is the way they're doing it, but I'm not exactly sure what he thinks would be the preferable way of doing it, because, I mean, there is the school of thought, which is just give me the exact same mix as what they use in the cinema, and because I have all of this Odyssey processing, and I have THX re-EQ if I want it, I have all this stuff to compensate for the difference between a full-size cinema and my home. Those technologies exist, so there is that line of thinking, but we have been doing dedicated home mastering since, like, I think about a year into DVD, because the very earliest DVDs, they did generally take the cinema mix and just put it on the disc, and that's why we ended up with THX re-EQ, because all the high frequencies were way too pumped up, because that's the way you need to master it for a gigantic room with hundreds of bodies in it absorbing high frequencies. And you bring that home to your home system, and everything sounds way too shrill. But ever since, like, some of the earliest DVD releases, they've been doing separate mastering for the home system, and they've been doing it this way all along. So this is nothing new. This might be a revelation in that you didn't know this was what they were doing, but this is what they've been doing all along. They've been using either smaller rooms or just a near field setup in their same dubbing stage. So yeah.
I would not prefer them to just give me the cinema mix for the exact reason that you discussed.
Yeah.
There are real differences in what in how theaters are designed and how they act with sound compared to how far away those speakers are. A lot of times, they just have a wall of subwoofers up front.
Yep.
And all those they're just a wall. I don't want them mixing for a wall of subwoofers. I honestly don't. I want them mixing for subwoofers in opposing corners or subwoofers that are, doing something specifically that I think should be done, or in as much an anechoic experience as possible, so that at least it's flat. It's got that flatness to it. That's smooth, flat, whatever. Call it what you want.
Now, Brian made a good point, which is that at least at Sony Pictures, and I'm hoping this is the case elsewhere, they are well aware that people who are using a regular setup like what we always recommend, like a 5.1 setup with dedicated subwoofers, where the speakers have been set to small, he's like, we don't want to actually base manage the original soundtrack, because then if it's already base managed there, it gets base managed again in your home. And that's a little bit like cascading filters, which we've talked about before. You don't want to filter it twice. So they say this is one reason why they use the big room, because in the big room, even with the speakers near field, they can set all of the speakers to full range and master and mix that way, because they know once you get it home, you can base manage it. They don't want to base manage it in the room, which they would kind of need to do if they used a smaller room. Because then everything would just sound weird if they didn't. So there's good reasons to do what they're doing. I actually think what they're doing makes the most sense.
Yeah.
The other thing I just want to touch on is what I found interesting is for Atmos, they are using Dolby's recommended 7.1.4 speaker setup. They're not using more than that, even though there are products like the Altitude 32 out there. They're just using 11 speakers.
So is that two? Is that the front two and the back two? Is that what it is? So
top fronts and top rears.
Yeah. Okay.
Top fronts and top rears. Yeah.
All right, Nathan. Heard us discussing Matt's all-digital Meridian speaker. This must have been the week I wasn't there.
It was the week you were away. That's right.
Meridian speaker setup, and wondered why there is any need to replace the Meridian processor. Nathan suggested using a new processor with all the features desired upstream of the Meridian. The new processor could simply feed Meridian via the 7.1 analog inputs, couldn't it?
No. Unfortunately, it couldn't, because Matt has the Meridian 568 processor, and it does not have 7.1 analog inputs, and it does not have HDMI inputs, so you can't send 7.1 PCM audio either. There is no way to use the processor he has to do the things he wants to do, which is lossless Dolby True HD and DTS HD master audio. He can't change the room correction. That he can't do it. He has to replace that Meridian processor, and if he replaces the Meridian processor, he has to replace all the speakers.
And I was going to say, is Meridian the brand where they put the DACs inside the speakers, right?
And the speakers only accept a digital signal. And Ray, I'm really glad actually Ray happened to be on that week, because he's familiar with the system, and he's like, unfortunately, you can't even what I was going to suggest, which is you can just get an analog to SPDIF converter, because the speakers understand SPDIF signals. I was like, okay, at least you'll get sound. He's like, no, unfortunately, what the signal that gets sent out isn't just like a straight signal. It's got compensation for the speakers built into it. God. So it really is a proprietary self-contained system. Matt's only choice, if he wants to keep his Meridian speakers, is to buy another Meridian processor, which, as he pointed out himself, is very, very expensive. That's why he didn't want to do it. But you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, Matt. I'm really sorry.
Certainly somebody's going to buy that stuff from you, dude.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
That will sell. That and is Nathan, not going to not sell.
Nathan, good thought, but unfortunately it's not going to work.
Yeah. Ken is a new listener. He says he loves the show being 1.5 to 2 hours long. Really? He's been listening to 1 or 2 episodes a day. I think a couple of more weeks he'll have listened to me more than my wife has. And he decided to ask a couple of subwoofer questions, since it seems as though we're a little bit interested in subwoofers.
Could be.
Picking up on that, are you?
Yep.
All
Might be a
right, number
theme.
one. He read an article describing the audio kinesis swarm subwoofer system. I have no
Oh
idea.
man, this review.
I haven't even seen that. I missed that link. It's
Oh,
basically
you would enjoy it.
four passive 10-inch subwoofers with one or two outboard amplifiers starting at about $2,500. The goal is smooth, uniform bass throughout the room that is free from excessive ringing, and resonance. That all seems to be in line up with what we talk about on the podcast, but most often we recommend two subwoofers. Ken figures we must have thoughts on a four subwoofer system, and he wants to know what they are.
Okay, I have to talk about the review first.
Okay, I have to click on it because I didn't read it. Go ahead, talk about it, and I'll love it.
Because it is squarely aimed at the two-channel audiophile crowd, the guys who say, I don't want subwoofers at all. If I'm going to have a subwoofer, it's only for movies when there's a dedicated 0.1 LFE track. That's the only thing a subwoofer is ever good to play. That is exactly who this review is written for, because this guy's like, it works. Like, it really works. Like, having more than one subwoofer, it eliminates all the problems that happen when you add a single subwoofer to your super duper two-channel system. And then he goes on to say, well, of course I still ran all my speakers full range. I didn't set them to small and bass manage them. I just allowed the four subwoofers to like duplicate some of the bass that's in all of the full range channels, because that is the way the audiophile crowd, that's the only way they're going to accept it. So, yeah, I mean, I just had to laugh because he was so hyperbolic and superfluous in his praise of the four subwoofer system, which I don't really buy, because yes, more than one subwoofer is exactly what we're always recommending for all the same reasons. That it evens out, it makes the bass response more uniform from seat to seat. That's really the goal. And as long as they're across the room from one another, they act as active bass traps for one another, and they eliminate some of those standing waves. We just talked about calculating standing waves in your room. It actually eliminates them, because instead of that sound wave bouncing back and forth between the walls, it goes from one subwoofer across the room to the other subwoofer, and the other subwoofer is pulling in just as that sound wave arrives, and it actually cancels it out at the wall instead of it bouncing back and forth. So all the stuff about it reduces the ringing, it reduces the resonance in the room, it makes the sound more uniform, all completely true, but the way it was described is what I had to laugh at, because it was written so clearly for audiophiles, two-channel, full range only.
Well, look at the price here: $2,500 for four subs and I'm guessing it's a two-channel amp. It's probably
no, that's for the single amplifier driving all four of them. Is the
1,000 watts driving all four of them.
Yeah.
So I guess you must series parallel connection. So which one is it? Series or parallel?
Well, two of them. There are two series pairs wired together in parallel. Right.
Okay. Yeah. That's actually not a bad price. $2,500.
That's not terrible.
And they're 12 inches by 12 inches by 23, I think, which is actually not a bad size.
Okay. And they're what you like, which is taller.
Yeah. Yep. Their frequency response is down to 20, which it says typical in room, which probably means 30.
Yeah. And they're ported. They're not sealed. They're ported subs.
Yeah. Which I'm surprised at that. It's not bad. That's not a bad price.
No.
But the thing is, it's like when you look at Floyd Toole's Dr. Floyd Toole's article, his white paper and stuff about this, there is a benefit to having four subs versus two.
Yes.
But the benefits are not that great compared to having two. So
yeah, like 2 versus 1. The difference from 2 to 1 is huge. Yes. And then the difference from 2 to 4 is real, but much smaller.
Yeah. So why don't I recommend 4 as much, or why aren't we talking about 4? Because I'm having a hard enough time getting people to buy 2.
Yeah. Yeah. And it is. I mean, the thing is, you could get 4 of the HSU STF2 subwoofers for $1,400.
Yeah.
And those are 10-inch subs that I would, at dollars to donuts, without having heard this Audiokinesis swarm, that they are every bit as good, if not better, in terms of just extension and sheer output capability.
The thing I do like about these, though, is the fact that it puts the amplifier away from the sub. And the only thing that's nice about that is that in this sort of situation where you're going to have 4 subs running around your room, and I know Ray and other people can comment on this, is that you run the risk of some sort of ground loop when you're plugging into 4 different outlets.
Right.
So you're either going to have to run everything back to the same, surge protector or the, power conditioner, or you're going to have to hope that you're not having that issue. That's one thing I kind of like about it.
Sure.
And the shape of these things is kind of nice because
Yeah.
they're just 23 inches. That's about an end table, right?
Yeah, no. When I was reading this whole thing, I was like preparing myself just because of the language used in the review. I was preparing myself for like a $25,000 price tag or something because those things easily happen. I'm like $2,500, 4 10-inch subs, 1,000-watt amp to power all
I
four.
want to see some real measurements on these things. I'd
Yeah.
like to know what their real performance is because don't tell me 20 hertz in room 'cause I don't.
Yeah, well,
Who's
you know,
wrong?
to address Ken's question, like one of the reasons we're often recommending 2 subs. I mean, the thing is, yes, the ideal to us is 4 subs. If you can do 4 subs and you can put them at the midpoints of all 4 walls or one in each of your 4 corners of your room, if you can do that, if you can afford that and do that positioning, go for it, man. Like that's fantastic. That is absolutely what we wish everyone could do. But realistically, we are more concerned with getting the extension that you want, which is really getting down to 20 hertz. And I mean, 4 10-inch subs that they claim in a typical room will reach down to 20. We have people writing in with like 10,000 cubic feet of air to pressurize. These won't do that.
Yeah.
We have people with great rooms. We have people with their entire rec room in their basement, stuff that's open to other places. So we're like, well, you're not going to be able to afford, because people have budgets too, you're not going to be able to afford 4 subwoofers that can actually pressurize and play as low in that size of a room, but you can probably afford 2.
Right? We talked about, I mean, there's just no way he can pressurize that space. He had like something ridiculous, like 10, 20,000 square feet of cubic feet or whatever it was of space, because it's open to the entire house, and that's a great plan, to live in.
Yeah.
It's nice and open and everything else, and you can see what your kids are doing from all the way across the house. But don't put a subwoofer in there; it's just going to get swallowed. And these things right here aren't going to be able to do it either. But smaller, medium-sized home theaters, it's going to be really kind of a nice little system. I wouldn't mind recommending. I'll put it on my list of things to recommend once I know what the actual performance is. If it's getting down to 20 hertz, well then, I mean, like really getting down to 20 hertz, well then, yeah, I can get behind it. If it's only going to go to 35, well, like he said, you can get the HSUs.
Yeah, for $1,000 cheaper and still get 4 of them.
Ken, in his truck, he has 2 12-inch Alpine drivers, I guess subwoofer drivers, connected to 2 500-watt JL audio amps. They are housed in a sealed enclosure of the size recommended by the manual by Alpine. Ken is wondering if switching over to 4 10-inch JL audio drivers with 2 drivers connected in each of his 2 500-watt amps would be able to play a little bit lower than his current pair of 12-inch drivers. These will also be housed in sealed enclosures of the size recommended by JL Audio if he were to install them. I am not an audio car audio guy. Like, I've never installed a speaker into a car. In fact, if I wanted to do it, I'd probably have to either look it up or whatever. But I looked at the performance of these two drivers, and they're all saying that they go down to about 26 hertz.
That's right.
So I don't think that just put more of them in there is going to get you any lower.
Not lower. No.
It'll get you louder.
Yeah, it might get you a little louder because 4 10-inch drivers do have more surface area than 2 12-inch drivers. But surface area is just about displacement.
Yeah.
It doesn't have anything to do with the frequency being played. It has to do with the amount of air being moved. So you can get louder, but lower depends on what the driver itself is capable of producing. And both of them bottom out at about 26 hertz.
Yeah.
So that's sort of the situation going on there.
That's what I was looking at when I was looking at this thing. I was like, because I don't know if car audio has some sort of magical sonic capabilities, but if these were subwoofers in your house and you were saying, well, I bought 4 of them,
right,
and now that they normally play to 25, so now they should be able to get down to 20. I'm like, no, they're just 25 but louder. More of them.
And 4 subwoofers in your home is a bigger difference than 4 subwoofers in your car, because 4 subwoofers in your car are essentially co-located. They're all beside each other. He was saying that these are going to go under the rear bench seat. So they're all in the same spot. You're not getting any of the benefits that we talk about of multiple subwoofers positioned across the room from one another, which I don't even know how you would do that in a car, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I've seen subwoofers. There's at least one car I've seen where they put the subwoofer driver on the dashboard, like way up in the front window. So
then one in the trunk?
There, I guess you would have to put one in the trunk. And then,
but I mean, standing waves aren't a problem in a car cabin because there's like no parallel surfaces and you've got big seats blocking the sound waves anyway. So standing waves aren't your concern inside of a car. So yeah, all the stuff we talk about 4 subwoofers being a little bit better than 2 in a room, it doesn't apply to a car. So the only thing you'd be getting here is potentially more output. That would be it.
Lastly, Ken wanted to comment that he still has his Sony dual-sided disc player in his system connected to his Anthem D2 processor, which handles upscaling the video via S-Video.
Yup. That was the best connection Laserdisc had.
It's kicking out old school. He keeps it for one reason and one reason only: the widescreen collector's edition Star Wars trilogy, the definitive collection Laserdisc sets. Even upconverted, it looks pretty good. And it's still the best and nearly only way to watch the original trilogy without all the added CGI crap. I'm sorry, effects.
He ain't wrong.
Yeah. I have VHS. I have the VHS one.
I have the DVD versions that had the transfer of the Laserdisc in non-anamorphic widescreen, meaning it has black bars above, below, and on both sides of the widescreen.
Fantastic.
So you can zoom it in and get about, 240p resolution.
Nice.
Because I was not about to buy an entire Laserdisc setup.
To HDR.
Uh-huh.
That'll be just glorious. Scott. I don't know how much my back's starting to hurt. I might know how much longer.
Maybe this will be the last one.
Scott's theater build continues to come along nicely. He enjoyed our 4-man episode from a couple of weeks ago, and he accepts our challenge of seeing his theater built completely in only 6 weeks.
We said that was optimistic, but he says it's going to get done. He did all the planning already, so that is huge.
Yeah. He's now nailing down his equipment choices since he is adding some bracing in the framing of the room for his ceiling. Since he is adding some bracing in the framing of his room for his ceiling-mounted projector. What projector should he use? I guess someplace in the myriad of emails, you know how big his room is, right? Because
he's described it in the video. So I think it's 11 feet wide by, I think he said 20 feet long, or it might be slightly 22 feet long, something like that.
He's considered the BenQ HT 1075 and the Epson 3500 and the LED-driven LG PF 1500. The LG is enticing because of its long-lasting LED lamp. However, a big consideration is that his wife and kids would like to be able to use a projector with some lights on in the room. Scott will enjoy watching movies in pitch blackness whenever possible. Turn everything off. I'm going to black out everybody but him. So it is important that the setup can handle both applications and look great in both situations.
Now, I was not really familiar with this LG PF 1500 because it's a low cost. It's about $1,000. 1080p LED lamp projector, which you don't see a ton of that at that price point. So it is intriguing because, LED light sources are kind of nice in that they last about 30,000 hours instead of 3,000. And they also turn on nearly instantly instead of having to warm up for a little while, which traditional projector lamps do. And he's like, I got kids, they're going to want to watch whatever they're going to want to watch right now, and they're not going to wait 2 minutes for the projector to warm up. So, good points there. However, it is not a light cannon. Most of these LED-driven projectors are not. They're usually a little bit dimmer than similarly priced projectors because LEDs just aren't quite there yet. It is also going to be a pain to set up because it has no lens adjustment at all. Nothing. I think it has a 1.1 zoom, which I'm like, what is the point of that?
It's like, I think it got closer. I think it's smaller. Wait, nope. Wait,
no. If you're off by 6 pixels, I guess you can fill the screen or shrink it down. But yeah, it's got no lens adjustment whatsoever. So it's intriguing. I'm glad he brought it to my attention because I wasn't really even aware of it. But it's not what I would choose. It's also described as not being exactly quiet.
That's too bad.
So there's a few things here to just sort of be aware of, and I don't think it's really the right choice. We've emailed since, and he's actually now strongly leaning towards the Epson 3500 because that thing is a light cannon. Even more than that, it's more expensive than either of these. It's about $1,200, but it's the light cannon, and it actually has better black levels than either the BenQ 1075 or this LG, at least according to all the reviews in that. So to me, that's got the combination of what he's looking for. Really high light output when you need it, better black levels when you're in the pitch black room. So what's not to like?
Apparently, he was still thinking about this when he got to his second question, because in regards to possibly trying different projectors, are there mounts that could offer the placement flexibility options that some projectors projectors lack.
Like this
For
LG.
example, if the projector doesn't have any lens shift, the
Uh-huh.
particular mounts compensate for that. I
Not
couldn't
ideally.
I couldn't really find anything that I thought was a viable solution. If you really want to have this sort of option, a shelf is what you need, sir. Build a shelf. Because you can build a nice long shelf that's just kind of painted the same color as your roof, right?
Oh, I see.
And
Okay.
you
Yeah.
know, and then just put the projector up there, and you hang it down from with just two nice, strong brackets. You know,
Okay.
and then you can slide the projector left and right across this thing. If this
Mm-hmm.
is a home theater, and it is a home theater, I
Yep.
mean, I don't. I think that projector mounts are kind of sexy, you know, because they have your projectors upside down and stuff like that. But frankly, after building my shelf, I would never go back to a projector mount. What a pain in my behind that thing always was. This is so much better.
Yeah,
So much better.
all a mount could do is tilt the projector.
Yes.
So I mean,
And then
yeah,
you're
yes, you could.
keystoning.
Yeah, you could have it hit the edges of your screen, which is what you're going for. Say you put it up there and it has no lens shift whatsoever, and then you discover, I have a little gap at the bottom of my screen and it's overshooting at the top, and now I either have to move my screen or I have to adjust this mount, completely. There's no easy adjustment other than tilting it, which then gives you a trapezoid shape instead of a perfect rectangle. So lens shift is so nice to have because it is darn near impossible, even if you're super careful and you really measure everything a gazillion times. It's almost impossible to get it pixel perfect onto that screen. I mean,
it's
I guess
gonna
that's
drive
why
me
they give you the
nuts.
1.1 zoom so that you can overshoot the edges by just a little bit, right?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Is this lastly? It's not. Getting into screens, would a gray screen help him retain black levels when the lights are on? Would a high gain screen be a better choice so that image will still be bright when the lights are on? And how accurate are the Projector Central calculator estimates for image brightness given a certain screen size and gain? I think we've discussed this a number of times, and it kind of comes back to 1.1 to 1.2 to 1.3 gain seems to be optimal for most situations. And if you are going to get a screen that's better for low light or better for highlight, then whenever you switch, you're going to have problems. So
Right.
you go with that high gain screen, and you go back to your hey, I'm turning all the lights off. We're going to have a really good movie. And then why is it hot? Why is it kind of glistening in that area? It's a hot spot. You got it because you've got this high gain screen, which you cannot see when the lights are on in the room. But now the lights are off. And if you're going with the gray screen, so you get these great black levels, then it's never going to feel bright enough during the day. Now, first of all, how many lights are going to be on? Let's talk about that. What kind of lighting are we talking about? Like floodlights, or are they just not going to leave the windows open? You've got glass everywhere. I mean, what are we
No.
talking about? Because if it's a lot, well, then yeah, maybe you might have to make some. Or just do what I do. Just let them go. I can't see it. Really? We'll turn some freaking lights off. Then you can see them.
He was talking about this is a dedicated theater. It is light controlled, so he's going to have some overhead lights. He says he's wired it so that the lights that are at the front of the room can be controlled independently of the lights that are at the back of the room. So he could flick on just a couple of lights at the very back of the room.
I don't think you need to worry about this, dude. I mean, especially if the absence of, like he says, a light cannon.
Oh, it is.
If it's very, very bright, I think you get the right screen for your dark. And I don't think a gray screen is necessarily it. I think a 1.2 gain, good to go.
So I have some pretty strong feelings on this, which not everybody is going to agree with, because I've certainly read differing opinions. But this is my feeling on it. Gray screens, just regular gray screens, I'm not a big fan of. To me, they never look right. Yes, they can make your black level a little bit darker because black is only ever as black as the screen is. That is what black is with a projection setup. It's you turn all the lights off, you turn the projector off, what do you see coming from your screen? So if you have a little bit of ambient light, you're going to see the screen there, and that's as black can ever be. But more important than black is contrast to your eye, because you can have a slightly higher black level, but if the contrast is still there, your brain is going to say, well, that's still black. when you have another bright thing on the screen at the same time. So I'm not a huge fan of the gray screens because they almost always shift the colors, and white never looks truly white. It looks gray because the screen is gray. As for the high gain screen, now a regular high gain screen, I would almost never recommend, because what a high gain screen is doing is, instead of the light coming in at an angle and bouncing off at a exactly opposite angle, everything gets sort of funneled towards the center. So the reason a high gain screen is higher than a unity gain screen, it's not like it created light. It didn't make the image actually any brighter. It just reflects more light back towards the center than off to the sides. But there's a big problem with that when you're trying to deal with ambient light, because it reflects all light that way. Not just the light from your projector, all light gets focused into the center of that screen and back towards your eyes. So it actually washes out worse than just a regular screen. A regular screen is just reflecting the light exactly, it comes in, it goes out at the exact opposite angle. High gain focuses it all towards your eyes. So not good there. So what I really like, instead of gray, instead of high gain, is retroreflective. Because that's a completely different thing. Retroreflective means instead of the light coming in at an angle and bouncing off at a perfectly opposite angle, like the way a pool ball would bounce off the side of a pool table, it reflects the light back the way it came. That's why it's retro-reflective. It's like a stop sign. The light comes back to its source. So when you have ambient light, which is around the sides or above or below your screen, the light from those ambient light sources gets reflected back to their source instead of to your eyes. Meanwhile, your projector is hopefully somewhere close to your eyes. It's going to be right above his head because it's a ceiling mount. That light gets reflected back towards the projector. But you're sitting close to the projector. You're hopefully not sitting close to any of your ambient light sources. So retroreflective works. There are some screens that are specifically made for high light situations, like sunlit rooms. And those can use things like louvers, which is what the Screen Innovations Black Diamond screen does. It actually has louvers in there. So those block out light coming from any angle other than directly head on. But those leave you some image artifacts. Like if you move at all, if you go to either side or stand up or squat down a little bit lower, like you see the louvers because it only works when you're bang on, and that's where the light can go in and come back out. There is DNP with their supernova screen, which is like a gazillion layers. And each of those layers absorbs different frequencies of light. And so they're counting on your projector basically having narrow wavelengths of light, like an LED or a laser-driven projector, so that those specific wavelengths of light get reflected back by the retroreflective surface at the back, which is basically a mirror back there, and all the other layers absorb all the other light. Now, it's a $3,000 screen, so it's well above the... Scott's looking for something in like the $300 range, so it's an order of magnitude too expensive. Effective, but kind of crazy. So the last ones are like, they're a gray screen with a coating on them, which is like the Stuart Firehawk, or I used to have one called the Grey Wolf, which they don't sell anymore because nobody liked how textured it looked. So the Firehawk is a good looking screen. It's dark gray, but it has this crazy coating on it so that white still looks white, and then it's gray, so it makes your black levels deeper. And Fire's cool, but it's expensive. So at the end of it all, I come back to getting a white retroreflective screen. The most popular choice by far is from Daylight. And they sell one called High Power. And I've used that screen myself, and my experience and everyone else's experience is that you're not completely free of all artifacts. It can give you some little sparklies because, like a stop sign, it's retroreflective. So if at certain little angles, you might get a little bit of sparkle in the image. But other than that, blacks actually look blacker on it because it's rejecting the ambient light. It's sending the ambient light back to where it came from instead of to your eyes. And then it has a much brighter image overall because it's reflecting the projected light directly back to the projector, which hopefully you're sitting right below. So I like the high power, even though it's white and it's called high gain. It's not like other high gain screens. It's retroreflective and it's affordable. So you put all that together, and that's what I would recommend in this situation, because in the dark, it looks like a white screen. So to me, that's the best solution, even though it's not necessarily going to give you the absolute blackest blacks.
I like the 1.2.
Okay.
All right, there we go.
Told you we disagree.
I do disagree with that. I disagree with anything that's going to potentially give me artifacts during my viewing experience.
Right.
You understand?
Yep.
That's where I differ with you. I mean, I understand
Yep.
what you're saying. You're trying to give him the best possible option that
Yeah.
gives him everything he wants.
It washes out less.
I
That's all.
care less about what his family experiences, and I care more about what. Honestly, that's what I care about. I care more about that, and they will be able to see. Will they be able to see every single thing? My kids could care less. I used to use back in Australia. I had this little projector. It was like a business class projector. I still have it, and I
Mm-hmm.
had it hooked up to my cable box. It had like a composite output. It had HDMI as well. It
Mm-hmm.
also had composite, and I would put the composite into this thing, and that's what I would let the kids use during the day. Absolutely, couldn't. It was completely washed out. It was a little bit hockey puck looking thing. It's got an LED light source. Probably lasts until the dawn of time. It's They didn't care one iota. No one ever said, I can't see the screen. They never cared. Never cared. My wife watched, never cared. They never cared. You know? She was just had people over the other day and she was telling them how much she doesn't care about audio.
Yeah.
I'm like, really? After all these years, you still don't?
It's kind of true on your regular 1.2 gain screen, just white, with the light cannon that is the 3500. It's still going to be a watchable image as long as you're not watching, like, I don't know, Supernatural or the eighth Harry Potter movie that was all dark. Because if it's all dark, then yeah, that's gonna look muddy. But if you're watching something that's got some bright colors or whites in it, the sheer light output is gonna make it watchable.
Let us
You
know
won't
what
have
you do,
great blacks.
dude. I want to know what
Yeah.
you do. I want to know what you do. And if you do what Rob says, I'm sorry. Jordan,
It looks
Jordan,
good.
enjoy our suggestions. I guess your suggestions.
Oh, we missed Scott's last one, which is
Is another
just
one? Oh, sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, he said he wanted to keep the cost of the screen low. You already said it, $300. Oh,
Yeah,
from
yeah. Well, it was
100
just because
100 to
screen
100
options.
inch. Yeah.
Yeah, actual screen options. Because getting, in my case, since I was recommending the high power, getting that with one of Daylight's fixed frame screens, you're not going to get it for $300. You're going to be looking at about 600. For their cheapest frame with the high power fabric on it. So Tom's solution is better if it really is about just getting a frame with a 1.2 gain screen, because you can get that from Elite Screens or Silver Ticket on Amazon. You can get it at that kind of price. So there you go. But if you really, really want to try the high power, you can get actually one of their manual pull down screens, which normally people are like, manual pull down? I don't want that because I'm going to have a wavy screen. High power, the fabric, it's so thick that it actually doesn't show waves, or very, very minimal. So getting a manual pull down screen, you can do it. Daylight has one called the Model B, which is just their basic run of the mill manual pull down screen. And you can get that for just slightly over $300 in that screen size with the high power fabric. So there is an option. It does exist. He probably doesn't want a manual pull down screen though. I think he had his eye on a fixed frame screen.
There you go. All right, Jordan, I lied. We're not going to do yours.
Okay.
All right, so we're ending this podcast now. We have Jordan Ashley, who has a couple of questions here. Everett, who has...
I'll have to email Everett because I
yeah,
not
he's
wait
got
forever.
a number of questions, and I think it looks like... let me see. Who is this?
Yeah, I did want to say
James.
James. Yeah, James wrote to us, and James, if you're listening or you hear this, I didn't see the Facebook post that he said he put up there. He said he posted it to our Facebook page, facebook.com/AVRantPodcast. I didn't see the post anywhere on there in either our messages or post to page. But James has basically got himself some measurement microphones, I believe, is what's going on, and.
Okay.
He's basically just looking to, he's going to play with them himself, but he's just looking to sort of get the whole community in on it, tips and things for him to try and stuff like that.
Okay.
So, James, hopefully you hear this at some point, or
Repost.
figure out what's going on over on Facebook there.
All right. So if you want to get your question answered on the podcast, all you have to do is email us at tom@avrant.com, rob@avrant.com. Come to the website, www.avrant.com, and post. Tired. If you'd like to leave us a donation, you can do that with the link on the right there. Buy us a cup of coffee. It's PayPal. Facebook.com/AVRantPodcast. Rob already mentioned that a couple times. We've also got Twitter @FirstReflect for Rob, @AVRant_Tom for me.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Until next time, for AV Rant, I am Tom Mantry.
And I'm Rob H. Now go out and listen to something.
And gents, we will be having the after party sooner rather than later, and I don't know why I'm so stupid widescreen again. Bye.